Hey guys, it's me, Gimpy, and this is some extra footage I am shooting for World at War 85 by Lyco Publishing. This is a monster game they had in progress from the prototype kit here at the WBC. You guys can see me all here playing over the time, and they've been demoing the game here for a while, so I kind of wanted to show you guys, one in progress so you can kind of see what's going on. Bear with me because I am filming, here at the WBC, so I don't have access to all my equipment like I usually do, so I'm kind of just holding the camera right now. But I did want to zoom in and show you guys some of the new pieces they've got going on, and the way I talked earlier about the card draw mechanic. We've got some cards down here. Now, remember I spoke, or I'm trying to avoid the glare coming in here. Remember I spoke earlier about how these cards work as a chip draw mechanic. So you'll take and draw one of these cards, and it's going to activate this unit, and you can tell what unit this is by it's going to correlate to the stripe there on it. So this group is going to correlate to these guys over here with this stripe. Right? It's just that simple. But we have our end of turn card here that I had mentioned previously, and you're not going to have a unit miss its turn, miss its impulse 2 turns in a row, because once this card is drawn and a unit does miss it, you're going to take that HQ counter, which you guys can see they have a few HQ counters here on it because they didn't get to go in the previous turn, so they are guaranteed an impulse during this turn. So you'll take the end of turn card like this one is here, and you'll place your HQ on here, and it's a reminder to say, okay, these guys are going to go, period, before the turn ends. I'll take and show you guys some of the stuff they got going on here. You can see this is the holding boxes and the turn counter track over there, and then artillery markers for everything. We've got the Russians on the right and the NATO units on the left. Those are the casualty boxes, and like I talked about previously, they got the HQ here in the wrong spot, but at least I think so. If I remember correctly, HQ cannot be destroyed, so they should be just into suppressed. They probably just tossed them over here while playing. But you're going to have your, defeated units here, but when your HQ units are defeated, they're going to be thrown in the suppressed box. My guess is, since I haven't got to see this game in action, is that these HQs that are in the casualties box are there because they are wiped out. Like, all of their units are wiped out, so there's no way for them to come back because they can't be attached to another unit. You can see a huge stack of Russian units here. It's a massive game they've been playing. And this is one of the bonus cards that I had talked about, or not cards, counters, that gets attached. This is a support weapon that can be attached, and you can tell they've got the letters there at the bottom designating who they can be attached to. You can see this has a range of 18, an attack of 4, and a hit roll of 4. So roll 4 dice, looking for 4s. But because of that green number there on the 4, that means it has the potential to run out of ammo, so you'll have to take and do an ammo check after you take and complete your attack, and then take and, if you get low on ammo, which we've got some of these counters here, grab some, let's see, low missile ammo, and then this one should be, no missile ammo. So you'll have that, and then if the unit is reloading, there's a counter for that, so reloading your missiles. So this will prevent you from being able to fire when you're taking and reloading. So you'll have some units that will take and get this, which means, hey, they can reload and attack again, and then you'll have some that will get this, which is your low missile ammo, which means they're going to fire one more round of that type of attack, and then they're done. At that point, they'll get the orange one, signifying they're out of ammo. Just be done. Over here, pan across, like I said, just simple turn track, and then down over here to the bottom left, we've got our markers for off-board artillery that can come in, and the right side is designating the strength, whether it's 2 to 3 or 3 to 4. It's all listed over here, and this is where you're going to keep track of it. But this has actually been one really fun game to watch. I've been probably irritating the hell out of Keith and Patrick, the 2 guys who've been playing it, because I've been interrupting with questions all the time about what's going on. The Russians pushed in from this side, well, Russians and East Germans Excuse me, cut that part out. Pushed in from this side and started to take and try to take these certain positions. Where were the goals? I'm not seeing it here. I think this city was one of their objective points. The city over here was one of their objective points. And I think one over here is an objective point. I think there's 4 total on the map, but they've got to get 3 out of the 4 to win the match. But they've got to occupy every single hex. Let me find the city. So, say this city is the objective. They're going to have to occupy both of these hexes. They can't just occupy one. But it is similar to other war games in the fact that once you pass through it, you're the last occupant, so you're going to have control unless an enemy unit takes and comes back through and takes control of the town again. Definitely been a fun match to watch. Let me see if I have anything else I can point out. Again, sorry about the glare. It's just the fluorescent lighting is all over the place. You see so many disrupted units, out of ammo units, all led across here. They had a big battle going on in this area. Wreck markers, and the thing is once you have a wreck marker in a hex, it does provide a defensive bonus, but you can't have more than 1 wreck, so you're not going to get a cumulative bonus there. So once 1 wreck marker is there, if another tank or vehicle is destroyed in that hex, you're not going to add another wreck marker. You're simply going to have the 1. You see they've been attacked severely up here. There's a burnout wreck there, more wrecks along this hill. When I was watching them, the tanks pushed through, came across this hill, and they did an assault move where they just basically jammed up on them, and the NATO forces lost all their tanks very quickly in this battle. Actually, the NATO forces only had a handful of Leos, M60s, and a couple of M1 tanks, while the Russians had their massive amount of T-72s and T-80s. But the NATO units do have other units that can take and have tow missiles or artillery or something else. But I'm really not feeling that NATO is going to pull this one out, because the Russian units are starting to push them back on the objective. And I think they've got something like 12 turns left, so he's got plenty of time to push them all the way back to the edge of the board. But anyway, I just want to take and add this to show you guys some of the counters and gameplay that you can expect to see here in World at War 85. Take and zoom in on just a few more of the counters, let you guys see the board, what all this is going to look like. I got to say, they are really nice counters. I am really excited for this one to come out. I'm actually kind of hating it right now because, you know, I'm getting to play all this cool stuff that isn't out yet, and then, you know, I'm going to go home and look at my shelf and just kind of cry, going, Gimpy, no, go back to WBC. I wonder if they'll get mad if I take the prototype kit and don't tell them. Oh, here it is. There's one of the objective markers. So this is an objective city right over here. So there we go. We got C, and this is some type of objective. I know it's 4 and it's city, so I don't know what they're going for there. There's D. I wonder where the other 2 were. They're probably buried under some of these markers over here, but those are your objectives over there. And then there's also a counter to designate north. All right, that's going to be it for me, you guys. Y'all take care. I'll see you in the next one.
Hey guys, welcome back. It's me, Gimpy, and I'm here with a special treat for you. I've got a little preview copy here of Storming the Gap, World at War 85 by Lock and Load Publishing. I gotta admit, I might have begged a little bit to get that to take home with me. It's a prototype copy that they had there at the WBC, and I kind of gave them the puppy dog eyes and had the wife, you know, Gippy's gal, give him the puppy dog eyes, like, please let me take it. So they let me take a copy home with me so I could do some play testing and playing around with it and film it and show it to you guys. So I've got a scenario set up here. I've got some footage that I filmed there. It's been good and bad on some of the footage that I've got from there, because sometimes I was able to get quiet places and do some filming, and sometimes I wasn't. So it's hit or miss right now on what footage has been actually usable. Sorry, I left my cards on the other side of the table. But I thought I would set up this little introductory scenario that's in the game and kind of walk you through it, let you see how the game plays a little bit. I am not an expert at this by any means yet. I have been going over the rules and sat down and I've watched it played and kind of gone over it a little bit. But there might be a little rules goof here or there. Again, since this is prototype stuff, some of the things might be different between what you're going to see here and the actual final production copy. As far as I understand it, all the counters are the final production counters themselves. So what you're seeing here is what they're actually going to look like. I think the sizes are right too. The material that they're made out of is different because these are the laser cut counters versus the die cut ones that are going to come with the production copy. And the map, you see this tape right along here. Since this is a production copy, the maps aren't printed, I don't want to say correctly, but they were printed just to take and have something to use for the prototype copy themselves. So they do need to be taped together to work right. So you won't have to do this in your copy that you actually get when you purchase it. But for our purposes, this will work. Now, the World at War 85 series, set in a fictional Third World War, NATO forces versus the Russians. And this is the platoon level, I guess you could say, combat. Actually, this would be company level combat. I don't know, I always butcher that crap. It's a step up from Lock and Load Tactical, all right? So whereas Lock and Load Tactical, let me grab a infantry counter here. For infantry, you would actually have like a little squad, you know, going at it. And this, you're actually going to have the whole platoon represented. For units like this, for infantry, you're going to see a NATO symbol. But for the vehicles, which are really the big draw in this game, it's all about the tanks and stuff like that. You're going to see the actual representation of the vehicle itself. Now, I don't know what footage I'm going to use from previous things, but I'm going to pull this up and go over it real quick just to demonstrate. I've got some of the player aids, and you see all the numbers listed down here on the vehicles, and it's nowhere near as complicated as it looks, all right? So if you haven't played the system before, it's really easy. Let's use our armor-piercing attack up here as an example. First number is your range. Second number, your firepower, is how many dice you're going to roll. So this T62 would have a range of 11, could roll 3 dice, and it's looking for a 5. It's just that simple. Now, there are some other considerations to take into account here. If you fire at half your range, okay, so half of this is 5.5, rounds down to 5. So if you're firing at 5 hexes or under, you're considered to be in point blank range. And in that situation, that hit number goes from 5 to a 4. So you want to get in close when you can. However, you can fire up to double your listed range, and that's considered long range. And at that point, that 5 goes to a 6. So it's kind of like X-Wing in a way. That's what I was saying. I love this game because it's like a war game mixed with miniatures in a way. If you get in close, you're getting a bonus chance to hit. If you're far away, you're getting a penalty to hit. It's just that simple. Most of the modifiers in this game are simple things like add a dice or remove a dice. Like your defensive bonuses will be adding dice. You'll just add one more, which is what this number down here. If this tank were to take a hit, or however many hits, you'll see as we kind of play it, you would take and roll 3 dice, your armor, and then your save roll is a 6. For this guy, you know, depends on the vehicle. So you'd roll 3, you're looking for 6s to take and, you know, stop the hits. Over here, your HE, so you're going to use this against soft targets, you're going to use this against armor targets. Your movement value is here, and then your assault firepower. So this is your close-in attack. So if you go into the hex and you're right on top of them and assaulting them, that's what you're going to use, your assault. And there's not as many modifiers actually affecting that. And the cool part is leaders can affect this. Let me see if there's a leader counter on one of these player aids that I can show you guys. It doesn't look like there is. I'm not seeing one. Of course. Oh, there it is. HQ. All right, let's zoom in here a little bit. Because I don't know if I'm going to have the counter images in time to embed them into the video when I put this up. So we'll see. If I've got the counter images, I'll throw them up in the corner like I usually do. And if not, then you guys are seeing it this way. Your HQ can take and provide a bonus. Your command bonus right there too. So if this guy were here helping, just they're different units, but let's say for example they were helping each other. If this HQ were attached to this T62, if he were to attack, instead of rolling 3 dice, he'd roll 5. He'd get the bonus. It's real easy, just like that. It all comes to how many dice you're going to roll and what number you're needing to roll to hit your target. Okay. Let's see. Let me show you a couple more of the other player aids real quick before we get down to the actual gameplay itself. We've got ourselves our turn record track here. That's what's listed there at the top. Potential weather conditions are listed down here. Squall, mud, it can affect things like your to hit rolls. If there's a real heavy rain, you know, squall, it can make it to where units that you fire against get extra defensive rolls. Offboard artillery tracks listed down right here, and the strength of the attack. So if you had this HE and then it was marked over here, then you would roll 2 dice looking for 3s, or you know, something along those lines. That's all listed down here. One player you got to keep out, and the other one is your holding boxes, which are right here, and your HQs are going to start here. Okay, start the scenarios here, and then they get deployed to the map. And also your support weapons. So let me grab the support weapon that was already on the map. Zoom in on it a little bit there. That is a support weapon, a TOW anti-tank guided missile that can get attached to infantry, and you can tell because it says INF down there at the bottom. So you would attach this to an infantry unit, and it would dramatically increase their attack and range for armored attacks. But the thing is, since that number is a green, their firepower right there, the number 4, after they were to make that attack, they would have to make a reloading roll. And depending on what they rolled, they potentially would have the TOW missile stuck in a reloading scenario. And what I really like is they have situations in this that actually there is a player aid that addresses it. Let's see if we can find that real quick. Like I said, I'm still kind of learning this game, parts of it. So, okay, here we go. Missile ammo usage. Okay, so you see, depending on the type of unit, it's going to determine whether or not they're going to get a reloading or a low missile or a no missile, just depending on what happens. So if the missile reload succeeds, if it fails, and then the type of unit that is firing it. So NATO units, or not just NATO units, but units that will traditionally have access to a lot of reloads, they might not be able to run out during the scenario, but they'll still have to take that reload, and they could get in situations where they can't get the missile reloaded. They keep failing the roll. Let's see, we've got your little reload counters, and then there's ones that say low or out, and that's to represent a situation like, you know, they've got a truckload of missiles that are supporting the heavy infantry unit, and they haven't been able to take and get them up to the front because they're taking fire from enemy units, like small fire that isn't being directly represented at this scale on the map. So that's what that's to represent. But if you have something like a light armored BMP unit that has a few TOW missiles, well, they may only have 2, 3, 4 missiles in the vehicle, and then the company only has, what, 3 to 5 vehicles, something like that. So when they take and conduct their missile attacks, they are more likely to run out. So when they reload, they're going to get a low missile instead of a reloading, which would give them only one more missile attack before then they have the no missile put onto them and they can't fire it anymore. It's to adjust it from earlier iteration of this game, where you would have light armored units that had unending supplies of missiles, and they just turned into their tank destroying units because they just race up and just start blowing everything away. Well, this makes it a lot more realistic to where those units can't do that. they can put out some heavy fire for a very short period of time, and then at that point they're just a light armor unit with maybe some small level of attack, but they're not going out there and running headlong into tanks and just putting down massive amounts of fire. Also, I mentioned it in a previous video. Again, I've got so much footage, just so much different stuff, so I don't know what I'm using yet. The HQ unit, the game used to have a thing where they would try to snipe the HQs because it would get stuck on the board, and then you could take it off the board, and then all of those units that were attached to the HQ were constantly having to make in command rolls. So if they failed their in command, then they couldn't act, and it turned it into like a leader snipe thing. That's been changed. Your HQ is going to start off board in the holding box, and then you can take and attach your HQ to one of your different units, and then when your units activate, it's a chit draw done by card system. You can take and actually move your HQ to any one of the different units, but you do have a range, which is a good time to take and bring up our cards here. Let's take and bring up one of our cards. Like, this is my card for these NATO units here. Okay, so Charlie Company here, and they have their morale listed down, their command range, and I forget what RC is right off the top of my head. I'll have to look it up. Morale, for any morale checks, reloads, stuff like that, they're going to use that. And then that command range is interesting because depending on where that HQ is, that's the range out that they can control the units that are in their command radius. So if our HQ unit is here, you can count out 5 hexes in any direction. So all of these units would be in command since they're all within 5 hexes. But if this guy were way the hell over here, well, that's off screen. Let's go over here. Yeah, if he were way the hell out here, then he would be out of command, and he would have to make an in-command roll check to determine whether or not he was in command. And if he was listed as out of command, you'd have to mark him as out of command, and he would not get to perform any actions. So it's a neat little back and forth system. The rest of the cards you're going to have in your scenario, it's going to list down what cards are going to be available to be used. This one, you've got your battlefield event, right? So you can have random events. You've got a couple of end turn markers. So once both of those are drawn, the turn ends, even if not all of the units have been activated. And then this one has one for the Soviet units. And unfortunately, I am missing the card that goes with this group of guys. It is a prototype kit. I just happen not to get that card. No big deal. I'm just using a standing card to fill in for it. And then the NATO units, because of their command structure, it's actually 2 cards instead of 1 that the Soviets have. So the Soviets might be tank heavy, but they're going to activate less often, but they're going to activate more units when they do activate. All right, so you get what I'm saying? The NATO units, though, since they have a little better organization, they're going to activate twice to the Russians activating once. And that actually helps them out because they get to clear off those ops complete markers that prevent them from performing things like op fire and actions and stuff like that. So you can op fire all your units as the Russians are trying to move in. Then you draw another one of your cards. You get to remove those op fire markers and perform your actions. It's a real neat system when you actually see it start to come together. Let's take a look at our scenario here real quick. And again, this is not professional. Well, it is professional, but it's not your final version of it. This is just the demo stuff right now, so don't take this as like the end-all be-all of it. You've got your little blurb about what's going on, playable area, your maps. It shows the actual map itself, shows where your objectives are, what hexes to put them in. I'll show you guys that here in a sec. The units for the NATO side. And you'll notice that there's a color here, and then these are white. These are attachments. So when you have an attachment, it's just basically generic units that get attached, and they operate off of whatever unit card that they're attached to. So while these guys don't have the same color, they are treated like they all have that light blue color there going across it. NATO units in this scenario also get 2 improved positions. So they have like defensive works that they've already built up. These things are neat. They actually stop the first hit the unit and that hex takes. And then on the next page, we have our Russian units. And you can see the card that they have there. Let's zoom in on it a little bit. And the Russians have a morale of 6 and a command range of 4. So a little less morale, a little less command range. They've got an HQ and 9 yes, I said that, 9 T-80 tanks. That is no bueno. So that's what I was saying. They are tank heavy as hell, but activating less often. As far as, let me throw this HQ in the holding box, because that's where it's going to start. Let's zoom in down here and I'll show you guys where the NATO guys are starting. Zoom in just a little more. Alright, so over here on this side, these little markers are your objectives. Now that means this city here is an objective, and it's every hex of the city, even the one that's across the river here. So there's 5 hexes of objective A that the Russians need to take, and then the other one is actually tucked right here underneath some NATO units. There are 2 city hexes here. So objective B, they need to take this city, and they need to do it within 10 turns. The NATO units can deploy wherever they wish. The NATO units deploy on map for this scenario, and the Russian units are going to start off map over here to the top right and come pushing down. What I decided to do, just to see how it would pan out, is since I only have 2 Abrams tanks, okay, I've got 1 tow Jeep, 1 tow basically APC armored personnel carrier, 1 without anything but some small arms fire, which isn't going to do crap against those tanks. Basically, this APC is just to move this group of infantry. And then I've got 1 group of infantry here that again has that support weapon, which the support weapon can start off map. All of them do, and it prevents the enemy from knowing what unit's going to be carrying that upgrade. Only problem is for this scenario is there's only 1 unit that can carry the upgrade, so there's no reason to keep it off map. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it down here on them. So this is where I'm going to start my guys. And it's interesting the way hills work here. You guys can see there's a little white line that goes around the hills. There's one right here going around. And if you were on the edge of the hill, so any one of the hexes that's right there on the edge of it, you can fire downhill, like you can fire into these valleys. But this tow missile that's up here in this armored personnel carrier, he cannot fire down into the lowlands because at the scale that we're at here, he is considered to be kind of too far back and his vision is obscured, so he's not able to do that. So to fire down, you need to take and actually be on the edge. The thing is being on the edge like that means that people on the ground can take and fire at your units as well. That's why I took and put both of the M1 Abrams in improved positions. Since they have pretty decent armor, they're rolling 4 dice to try to make 5. First hit is going to be stopped, so I'm hoping that's going to take and help hold these 2 guys out to where they'll be shooting up in that direction and kind of holding the Russians back. Now, the thing is, the Russians could try to make an end run all the way around the top here and try to come around the flanks or maybe in between this little valley, or they could just try to make a dead run right through it and see what happens. This tow missile here can take and help out since they are on the top of this mountain. There is a mountain over here. Let's back out so we can see. I'll pan it back up. You guys can see I've got all the Russian T-80s here laid out to the side, ready to go. Zoom in, focus there, as you guys see it. And they're going to start somewhere up here at the top of the map and kind of push down. I haven't decided how I'm going to kind of handle those yet. But if, just for an example, if you had a line of sight onto another hill. So both units are on level 2, you know, not level 1 down there in the ground. They can fire on each other. So that's why I have that tow launcher up here. So if they try to crest any of these ridges to try to race in, he can put fire down on them. And then if need be, he can always fall back and try to fire down into this little valley or into this little valley, depending on which way they go with it. What I'm going to do is after poking around at this game a little bit, because I've played it off camera for a little while, I think this game will be very good for solitaire play because of the chit pull mechanic. Chit pull mechanics obviously work excellent when it comes to solitaire play. You don't know what unit's getting ready to activate. Units could potentially not activate. Speaking of which, say that, just for an example, the Russians had not activated, right? Both of the American cards have been pulled, and then both of the end-turn cards have been pulled. So that's the end of the turn, and the Russians didn't get to do their thing. Well, in that situation, you would take the Russian HQ counter that's associated with this card, and you throw it on there, and you could not, oh, not this card. You would do, excuse me. It's been a long day. I've been doing a lot of filming, so bear with me if I make it look good. You would put it on one of the end turn cards. That way, the following turn could not end without that unit going. And you do that with any unit that actually didn't get to take and activate the previous turn. So you'll never have a single company unit or a group of units that doesn't get to go 2 turns in a row. If they don't go 1 turn, they're guaranteed to go on the following turn because of the end turn card mechanic that is used. So I really like that. It prevents random chance from making things way too lopsided in one direction or the other. All right, how long have I been going? About 23 minutes. Okay, I've talked about it enough. I'll probably stop here, just let this be a setup video, and then I'll start recording on the next one and let you guys see some actual play. We'll zoom in on it and see what's going on with it. Also, on top of the chip pull mechanic, I did want to mention this. I think this will work decently with the solitaire module. I'm going to do some poking around at it, just play with it and see what I can come up with. But I think it might work. I'm going to use it off camera and then tell you guys my thoughts on it. But you guys know me. I love solitaire play. I really like this these game mechanics. So I think this will all come together into a really excellent game you guys can be looking forward to.
Hey, it's Gimpy's Gal. Check out, we finally got Facebook pages set up for GimpyGamer and Gimpy's Gal, so check it out in case he forgets to tell you.
All right, she just wanted to say hello. I'm going to pause it here. We'll take and pick up with turn 1. I'll take and shuffle up the cards. We'll have our little shuffle up and deal. We'll see who goes first and let you guys see just a little bit of gameplay. I'm probably not going to play through all 10 turns of it just because I have so much other work I've got to do, but just enough so you guys can get your appetites whetted for World at War 85. All right, y'all take care. I will see you in the next one.